Whoa, dude. Ever feel like your brain's just a pinball machine? Like thoughts just bouncing around, lights flashing, and you have no freaking clue where the ball's gonna land?
That's a pretty accurate description of human judgment, actually, especially when you factor in noise.
Noise, man. Like my neighbors blasting death metal at 3 a.m. That kind of noise.
Not quite. We're diving into this book, Noise, A Flaw in Human Judgment. It's by Kahneman, the thinking fast and slow guy.
Whoa, that dude's a legend. Like he's the Yoda of brain science, except with fewer puppets.
Yeah, he is a big deal. And in this book, he's teaming up with Sebeny and Sunstein to tackle this whole noise thing. It's not just about our own little head trips. It's about how entire systems, like courts, companies, even governments, are riddled with noise.
So, like, the system's rigged, man. Just like that carnival game where the hammer never quite hits the bell hard enough to win the giant stuffed panda.
Well, the analogy works. The book argues that a lot of our decisions are way more random and unpredictable than we realize.
Randomness, man. That's like the cosmic joke, isn't it? We think we're all logical and in control, but really it's just chaos dressed up in a suit.
There's definitely a cosmic element to it, but the book breaks down two main types of error: bias and noise. Bias is being consistently off in one direction, like always underestimating how long a project will take.
So like my dart throws always end up in the neighbor's yard, that's bias.
Pretty much. But noise is different. It's about being all over the map, unpredictable. Like one day your darts hit the bullseye, the next day they're stuck in the ceiling fan. No consistency.
Dude, that's my life story. Total inconsistency. It's like the universe is playing darts with my destiny and it's a really bad shot.
Well, the book argues that a lot of this inconsistency comes from noise in the system, and it's costing us big time.
Costing us. Like more than a bad tattoo after a tequila bender.
Way more. Think about judges giving wildly different sentences for the same crime, or doctors making different diagnoses based on their mood that day.
Whoa, dude, that's heavy. Like my doctor diagnosed me with acute existential dread just because he's having a bad hair day.
Exactly. The book is full of examples like that. It shows how this noise leads to bad hiring decisions, inaccurate forecasts, inconsistent customer service. It's a hidden problem with huge consequences.
Hidden, man. Like those trippy optical illusions where you see one thing, but it's really something else entirely.
Kind of. We often don't even realize how much noise is affecting our judgments. And it gets even weirder when you start thinking about the crowd within.
The crowd within. Like a bunch of tiny people having a rave in my skull.
Not quite. It's this idea that we all have multiple selves making judgments. And these selves can be just as noisy and inconsistent as different people.
Wait, so like I'm arguing with myself all the time. No wonder my brain feels like a war zone.
It's more like having a committee in your head, but the committee members are all high on sugar and haven't slept in days.
Dude, that's the most accurate description of my internal monologue I've ever heard.
But here's the kicker. The book says that averaging two of your onabi and judgments spaced apart in time is actually better than just going with your initial gut feeling.
Wait. So, like, if I'm trying to decide whether to get that galaxy tattoo, I should write down all the pros and cons, wait a week, and then do it again.
Exactly. The book calls it decision hygiene. It's about creating a process to minimize the noise and get a clearer picture of what you really want.
Decision hygiene, man. That sounds way less fun than a spontaneous tattoo party. But, okay, I'm listening.
The book is full of these techniques.
Yeah.
It argues that good judgment isn't just about intuition. It's about building systems that are less susceptible to noise.
Systems, man. Like, instead of just winging it, we gotta, like, build a noise-canceling fortress for our brains.
That's one way to think about it. But before we get into the specifics of noise busting, let's unpack some of the key sources of this noise. Because it's not just about randomness. There are specific patterns and influences at play.
Patterns, man. Like those magic eye posters where you gotta stare until a dolphin pops out.
You're full of analogies today.
Okay.
But yeah, there are patterns, and these patterns can reveal a lot about how our judgments are shaped by factors that shouldn't really matter. Like the weather, our mood, even what we had for breakfast.
Wait, are you saying my love for sugary cereal is messing with my decision-making?
Potentially, but we'll get into that in part 2.
Dude, you're killing me with the cliffhangers. My brain needs answers like, and now W.
Patience, my friend. All will be revealed in time. For now, let's just acknowledge that our minds are noisy instruments.
Noisy instruments, man. Like a bunch of kazoos playing a death metal symphony.
Something like that. But the good news is, once we understand the noise, we can start to tune it out.
Tune it out, man.
Yeah.
Like finding the perfect frequency on the cosmic radio dial.
I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. Part 1. We'll be back soon to explore how we can quiet the noise and make better decisions even with all this chaos swirling around us.
Stay tuned, folks. The journey into the heart of noise continues, and it's about to get even weirder. All right, so my brain's a noisy instrument. a cosmic kazoo symphony. I'm starting to get the picture. But how do we actually tune out all this noise, man? Is it like a mute button for the mind?
If only it were that simple. But the book does offer some practical advice. Remember that decision hygiene concept. It's about creating systems and processes that reduce noise and help us make more objective judgments.
Right, decision hygiene. Like washing our hands before surgery.
Yeah.
But for our brains, except way less gross.
Exactly. And one of the key ideas is to use structured decision-making processes. Like imagine you're hiring someone for a new job, instead of just relying on your gut feeling from the interview.
Which is basically just judging someone on their handshake.
Yeah.
And whether their shoes match their belt.
Right. Instead of that, you can use a structured interview process with predetermined questions, clear evaluation criteria, and multiple interviewers.
Whoa, multiple interviewers. That sounds like a recipe for awkward silences and power struggles.
Maybe. But it also helps to reduce the influence of individual biases and noise, because each interviewer brings their own perspective and set of experiences to the table.
So it's like a jury of my peers.
Yeah.
But for deciding whether someone gets the job.
Kind of. The idea is to get a more balanced and objective assessment by factoring in multiple viewpoints. And this principle applies to all sorts of decisions, not just hiring.
Okay, so structured decision-making, check.
Yeah.
What else is in the noise-busting toolkit?
Well, another key technique is to focus on base rates.
Base rates. Is that like the starting price for a cosmic taxi ride?
Not quite. It's about understanding the average outcome for a particular event. Like if you're trying to predict whether a new business will succeed, you need to know the overall success rate for new businesses in that industry.
So don't get too hyped up just because the owner has a really convincing pitch deck and a killer kombucha recipe.
Exactly. It's easy to get swayed by specific details and ignore the bigger picture. But base rates provide a crucial anchor for our judgments. They help us avoid making overly optimistic or pessimistic predictions.
Whoa, dude. That's like a reality check for the brain. Makes you realize how much we base our decisions on vibes rather than like actual data.
It is a reality check. And the book is full of examples where ignoring base rates leads to terrible decisions. Like doctors overdiagnosing rare diseases because they're focused on a patient's specific symptoms and forgetting how statistically unlikely those diseases actually are.
So it's like zooming out and seeing the whole forest instead of getting lost in the trees, man.
That's a great analogy. Base rates help us see the forest, and that's crucial for making informed decisions.
Okay, base rates, got it. But what about all the noise that's like baked into our brains? Can we even escape that?
Well, that's where the idea of the crowd within comes in. Remember how we talked about averaging our own judgments over time? That's one way to tap into the wisdom of our multiple selves.
Right, the internal committee meeting. But this time, everyone's brought snacks and is in a slightly better mood.
Exactly. By spacing out our judgments and considering different perspectives within ourselves, we can reduce the influence of temporary fluctuations in mood, attention, or whatever else is messing with our thinking.
So it's like creating a mini democracy inside my own head. Except I get to be the benevolent dictator, obviously.
Sure, you can be the benevolent dictator. The point is that we can harness this crowd within to make more thoughtful and balanced decisions. And it's not just about individual decisions either.
Wait, you're saying this applies to like organizations and stuff too?
Absolutely. In fact, the book has a whole section on how to apply these noise-busting techniques in different fields, like medicine, law, finance, even forecasting.
Forecasting, like predicting the future. Isn't that like impossible, man? The future's just a swirling vortex of possibilities.
It's definitely tricky. But the book highlights some fascinating research on super forecasters. These are people who are consistently more accurate in their predictions.
Super forecasters. Sounds like a superhero team, man. They wear capes and fight crime with the power of probability.
Maybe not capes, but they do have some impressive skills. They're really good at thinking critically, considering different perspectives, and updating their beliefs based on new information.
So they're like the ultimate skeptics, always questioning everything and refusing to be swayed by hype or like the latest Twitter trends.
Pretty much. And that makes them way less susceptible to noise because they're constantly challenging their own assumptions and looking for evidence to support their predictions.
Dude, that sounds exhausting. My brain's already tired just thinking about it.
It's definitely work, but it's also incredibly valuable because accurate forecasting can help us make better decisions about everything from investing in the stock market to preparing for climate change.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal, but like, How do I become a super forecaster? Is there a secret training program? Can I get a superhero costume?
I don't think there's a quick fix, but the book does suggest some techniques that can help us all become better forecasters, like focusing on base rates, breaking down complex problems into smaller pieces, and seeking out diverse perspectives.
Diverse perspectives, like making sure I'm not just hanging out with people who agree with me all the time.
Exactly. When everyone's thinking the same way, it's easy for noise to creep in undetected. But when you have people with different backgrounds, experiences, and viewpoints, they're more likely to spot each other's blind spots and challenge assumptions.
Dude, that's like the opposite of my usual echo chamber of internet memes and conspiracy theories.
Well, maybe it's time to step outside that echo chamber, because the book makes a strong case for why diversity is crucial for reducing noise and improving decision-making.
Okay, diversity, got it. But like, how do we actually implement all this stuff, man? It seems like a lot to process, especially with all this noise swirling around in my head.
That's a great question. And it leads us to the heart of what the book is really about. Changing the way we think about decisions. It's not just about learning new techniques. It's about cultivating a mindset of humility and awareness.
Humility, man. Isn't that like the opposite of how most people operate these days? Everyone's got to be the loudest, most confident voice in the room.
True, but that confidence is often misplaced. The book argues that we need to be more aware of our own limitations, more open to the possibility that we might be wrong. And that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people.
Yeah, I can see how that would bruise the ego. But maybe a bruised ego is better than like a totally screwed up decision.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're all susceptible to noise no matter how smart or experienced we are, and that humility is essential for making better judgments.
Okay, humility check. What else is part of this noise-busting mindset?
Well, another key element is being open to feedback, even if it's not what we want to hear.
Dude, feedback is tough. It's like getting a bad trip report on your own brain.
I know it can be hard, but the book makes a compelling case for why it's essential, because without feedback, we're just stuck in our own noisy echo chambers, blind to our own biases and errors.
So like embrace the criticism even if it stings a little.
Exactly, because ultimately it's about learning and growing, and that's how we reduce noise and make better decisions.
Dude, this is like heavy stuff. My brain's starting to feel like it's overheating.
I know, it's a lot to take in, but we're almost there. In part 3, we'll explore the big question: does all this noise busting actually work? Can we really make a difference, or are we all just doomed to wander around in a fog of uncertainty?
Doomed to wander, man. That sounds kind of bleak. But okay, I'm hooked. Hit me with the truth. Part 3. All right, dude, my brain's been through the ringer. We've explored the noisy depth of human judgment, built a noise-canceling fortress in my mind, even hung out with those super forecaster dudes. But the big question remains: does knowing about noise actually change anything?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the book doesn't offer any easy answers.
Like we're all just like cosmic pinballs bouncing around in a universe of randomness.
Not necessarily. The authors are actually pretty optimistic. They believe that by raising awareness and implementing these decision hygiene techniques, we can make a real difference.
So it's not just about like sitting around and contemplating the noise. We got to actually do something about it.
Exactly. It's a call to action, a wake-up call about how much noise is messing up our decisions, and a challenge to find ways to minimize it.
Dude, that sounds like a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure I'm qualified to be a noise buster, man.
You don't need a special qualification. It starts with small steps. Remember those decision hygiene techniques: structured interviews, checklists, getting multiple opinions.
Right. The noise-canceling headphones for our brains.
Exactly. Those are all things you can implement in your own life, in your work, even in your relationships.
So like instead of just going with my gut when deciding whether to get that galaxy tattoo, I should like create a spreadsheet, consult with my astrologer, and get a second opinion from my cat.
Well, maybe not the cat, but the point is to be more deliberate, more systematic in your decision making.
Okay, systematic. Got it. But what about all the noise that's like beyond my control? The noise of the world, man. All the chaos and uncertainty swirling around us.
That's a valid point. And the book acknowledges that there are limits to what we can do as individuals. But that doesn't mean we're powerless.
So like we're not just helpless victims of the noise monster. We can actually fight back.
Exactly. The authors believe that by changing the way we think about decisions, we can create a ripple effect that spreads outward.
A ripple effect, man. Like dropping a pebble into the cosmic pond.
That's a beautiful image. And it's true. When we start making more thoughtful, less noisy decisions, it influences the people around us.
So like if I start using a checklist to decide what to eat for breakfast, My roommate might be inspired to do the same.
It's possible, but it goes deeper than that. It's about creating a culture where good judgment is valued and noise is recognized as a problem.
Dude, that sounds like a utopian vision. A world where decisions are based on, like, reason and evidence, not just random noise.
It's a vision worth striving for. And it starts with each of us taking responsibility for our own judgments, being more humble, more aware, and more open to feedback.
Humility, awareness, feedback. Man, those are some powerful noise busters.
They are, and they're within reach for all of us.
Dude, I gotta admit, I'm feeling, like, strangely hopeful. Maybe we can actually tame this noise monster one decision at a time.
I believe we can, and that's the message I hope listeners take away from this deep dive, that recognizing noise is the first step towards reducing it.
Recognition, man. That's like the key that unlocks the noise-canceling fortress of the mind.
Beautifully put. And once we've unlocked that fortress, we can start making decisions that are clearer, more rational, and ultimately more aligned with our values.
Man, that's deep. And, like, weirdly inspiring. Yeah. I think I would go meditate on that for a while. Maybe make a checklist for my meditation practice, just to be safe.
Sounds like a plan. Just remember to stay curious. Keep questioning, and don't be afraid to embrace the silence once you've tuned out the noise.
Silence, man. The ultimate frontier. Thanks for guiding me through this wild journey into the heart of noise.
Anytime. And thanks to all you listeners for joining us on this deep dive. Remember, the power to quiet the noise is within each of us.
Peace out. And may your decisions be ever noise-free.